Hi, my loves. I hope the new month is treating you very, very kindly. I had a brilliant conversation with somebody over the last week, and we talked a lot about the rise in neurodivergent diagnosis since the pandemic. So you have a lot of people now who are talking about their neurodivergence a bit more, or just realizing that for many years that hyper focus they had, or being burnt out and thinking they had depression, or thinking they were lazy or couldn't finish things, was actually a sign of them being neurodivergent. So I've created a post on my website, www.theequilibriumcoach.com. If you go into the post, it's on there on my blog. The title is The Rise in Neurodivergence, Diagnosis Post-Pandemic, Understanding what it is and how to support yourself or others as an ally. I will give you a little bit of a summary of the different types of neurodivergence. Okay, it just seems to be a thing where people think it's just one slipper fits all, and that's people going on my website, that's nice. And not realizing that actually some people have traits of neurodivergence but actually aren't neurodivergent. You can have traits, or you can actually be, according to DSM, actually neurodivergent. But it comes under many hats. But first, let's talk about the rise in diagnosis. So a lot of people think, it's just people just now, or everyone, I've seen it online, everyone's autistic now, or everyone has ADHD now. But actually, in fact, a lot of people do. We're talking about people who are atypical, where that's basically saying the typical way the brain works. But actually, there aren't that much statistics, because a lot of people, they only get diagnosed when the symptoms become more and more prevalent, probably due to stress, post-pandemic, where for some it was a really nice relief. It was nice to be at home. It was nice to be with my children and family. We homed ed during that period, so we had a fantastic home ed community. Started up 2 businesses whilst doing it. It was great. It was also my stress response, but my stress response is to get very proactive and get things done. Whereas for some people it was awful. They were isolated. It was forced isolation. They were isolated. They felt trapped. For some, it was actually nice not to have to mask. They didn't have to go on the tube and commute. They didn't have to engage in the small talk in the office and pretend to be interested in what's happening with the Kardashians. No shade. They're all right, but no shade. But they was able to actually jump on a Zoom, do what they got to do, come out, and it worked really well. So when we are then forced to go back into the working world, actually for some, they'd actually settled, and now they had to go back to masking, which was causing the big issue. Or for others, actually now being around people, they start to realize and be more observant of what people are doing and how they're responding to people. There was a chance to actually pause and stop for a while, which is crucial, really. So yes, I first want to explain again that there's a difference between neurodivergence and someone who is neurodivergent. Neurodiverse, I explain it a lot. If you think about a classroom of children or your family or friendship group, there is neurodiversity within your group, because it just means neuro, brain, and diversity, difference. So some people have different learning styles. In the classroom, I have many my class is neurodiverse because there's different ways of learning. So some of my students, I know they are more auditory, so they work well with me explaining the instructions. Some are more better at actually getting their hands on and doing it. So they love the triads, basically the skills practice, the demonstrations, and they're doing it themselves. Others, they need to actually read it. They need to take the notes. It's their learning style. It's a diversity in learning. It's a neurodiversity. Neurodivergence, however, is more under an umbrella. Again, a lot of people seem to think that one slipper fits everyone. It doesn't. There are lots of different types of neurodivergence, which I will explain to you. But that's what neurodivergence is. It's a different way of your brain learning, perceiving, operating. You may need more dopamine. So you have to get that through other things, sometimes there's lower serotonin. So it's just a different way in your brain processing. So I'll explain to you very briefly. Go onto my blog, have a look, but also do your own research as well, okay? But we have autism spectrum disorder, ASD. You probably hear a lot of people talk about autism. And one of the misconceptions is that somebody who is fit and healthy and bubbly and has good dress sense can't be autistic. Someone who's empathetic and can actually see your facial expressions and read it can't be autistic. That's not true. It's a spectrum. There are different, spectrum. It's just different. Some people maybe can't. Some people can. I'm very sarcastic. It also depends about culture as well. For some of us who are brought up in black culture or Indian or East or away from the West, maybe, we're brought up in big families where aunts passed you around and uncles were chatting and you'd hear conversations, so you learn the social cues a bit quicker. And maybe in that, learning to mask, high masking. People call it high functioning, which a lot of people don't like. It's not about high or low functioning, but a high masking person who is possibly autistic, they won't come across, you won't see it. They've learned the social cues. Maybe they watched a lot of videos as children and movies. Maybe they're the ones like myself who sits in cafes and watches and loves people watching, or has a big interest in human behaviour. So you can learn a lot and understand a lot. But also empathy is not true. Very few people I know who are autistic are not empathetic. In fact, they feel emotions very, very strongly, the ones that I know. And that maybe it's that they're not responding to it because it's just so much, it's overstimulating. Whereas some, yes, they don't maybe feel their emotions, understand it. There is a name for it, I can't remember. I think it's alexithymia. I'll have to find it and post it for you. But that is maybe not understanding their emotions or feeling them or recognizing them. And with clients like that, I have to teach them. So I'd say things like, in your stomach, can you feel something? Is that the river? You're feeling the oceans, the waves. That could be anxiety. So giving language to things. But it's really interesting. I just clocked it 6 minutes. Let's get on with it. So ASD. So autism spectrum disorder is characterized by differences in social communication, sensory processing, and repetitive behaviors. While autism is often discussed as a singular condition, I'm reading from my blog here, it is highly diverse, with individuals exhibiting a wide range of abilities and challenges. Key traits may include hyper-focus on specific interests. So it might be that person is a fantastic artist or designer, or intellect, academic, or whatever it might be. They become a doctor and they're like top of their league, or they are the best sports person ever because that's their specific interest. And yes, if you look at the old diagnosis back in the day, it was usually young white boys who collect trains or collected cards or leaves, and you'd be like, okay, yeah, they're autistic. Whereas now it's different. It might be that you collect shoes or makeup, or you can tell me everything about the Kardashians because that's your special focus and interest. It's diverse, you know? And they deep dive into hobbies. So I've got someone I know that when they have an interest in something, they deep dive. So if I want to know anything about it, I go to them. If that's their current interest, they know everything about it. They could write a book. So it's fantastic. The downside might be that you get burnt out quite quickly if you don't have a balance in place. Sensory issues, so aversion to loud sounds, smells, textures, bright lights, often cause an overstimulation that may present as irritability, dysregulation, anger, shutdown, or avoidance. Difficulty with conventional social norms or unwritten rules. What I like to say is there's a discomfort with fakeness and pretending. So there's a literal way of speaking and saying what others may shy away from and more. I can read the cues. I know sarcasm, I know humour, but actually what I don't do is I don't have time for foolishness. But obviously as someone in their 40s, I know when it's appropriate not to say or not to say. But with my close circle, I will probably say, I can't think off my head of anything right now, but there's an honesty. You know who to be honest with or not. However, there's some people who are on the spectrum who maybe don't yet know the social cues. So you might ask them, they like your food, and they tell you, no, it's really salty. Because as far as they're concerned, you've asked them a question, you therefore want the true answer. For those who maybe have learned the social cues or mask or anything else, it might be they pretend that it tastes nice, or they learn better scripts. Scripts are things that you pre-know what's a thing. You have different scripts of what you should say in certain situations. So it might be, yeah, it was okay. There's I got a bit of salt in that. Maybe next time, just that kind of conversation. Yeah. Then we have ADHD or ADD. ADHD is the attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, the hyperactivity. But there's also the ADD. I see a lot of women that I see in my private practice with ADD. And as therapists, we cannot diagnose you. We can kind of talk to you about you having traits and discuss with you about diagnosis and going to get diagnosis if it's having an impact on your life. But ADHD, we've seen it. You usually talk about it with boys, and women have it too. And it's like, you know, they're fidgeting, they're moving, their hands are going, maybe they can't sit still. It's always that profile, that child who's jumping around the classroom. That's not always what's happening. With ADD, it might be that it's in their minds. So I've put it here. People with ADHD often experience difficulty sustaining focus on tasks they find uninteresting. So yes, someone with ADHD can focus if it's something that's interesting. They can hyper focus. But if it's not something they're interested in, so you might see people in school falling asleep or in conversations, they're not interested, but let it be a topic they like, they're wide awake. A propensity for propensity for creativity and innovation. A lot of top entrepreneurs I have seen in the media, and I know are ADHD, and it's because they are able to juggle so much things. The ideas they have are just amazing. I recently watched a documentary on Pharrell, the Lego documentary, which I think is so creative and so neurodivergent. And he talks about his, I can't remember what he's got, it's got out of my mind, but he actually sees music, he sees the colours of it, and he talks about neurodivergence, and it's that hyper creativity. And if you don't have the support to learn and have different learning styles and people around you that encourage that, especially people who fail in school or think they're not intelligent, but you are, you need someone who teaches you your learning style and truly sees you. That's all it is. There's often an inability or an innate ability to hyperfocus on activities they are passionate about, as I said. ADD is also the same condition, but rather than it being seen as physically hyperactivity, an individual may instead be someone with lots of tabs open in their mind. So it might be that, you know, you've got a list of things to do and you haven't done it, and you're thinking about this and thinking about that while talking about this. You've gone off to other lines and you've just got loads of things going on in your brain. Inside your head is hyper, but it might be that outwardly you're very calm. For some, they know how to manage it and balance it. For others, that is an issue. So you might see that they lose focus when you're talking to them, or be like, oh, sorry, what did you say? Because they've got so much things going on in their minds and they're not being rude. It is that it's internal, not the external fidgeting. Yeah? It's not uncommon for those who are ADD or ADHD to also have traits of autism or be autistic. Okay, we then have dyslexia. Dyslexia primarily affects reading and writing skills, often making it difficult for individuals to process language in a linear way. However, many individuals with dyslexia excel in visual spatial reasoning, creative problem solving. Most definitely, I've seen some people where, again, they thought they were failing in school, and then I've seen them as adults go through that journey of getting diagnoses and realizing nothing's wrong with them, and fantastic. And thinking in multi-dimensional ways, just out there. Then you have dyscalculia. Dyscalculia involves, which kind of makes sense, calculus, involves challenges with understanding numbers and mathematical concepts. Now, some people don't get maths. It's something I have to work very hard at, but I don't have dyscalculia. I just have a brain that's like, oh God, really? It's not my interest, unless it's the mortgage interest rates or you not giving me my change back, then I know. I know maths. For those with dyscalculia, everyday tasks such as budgeting or telling time can be difficult. However, they may demonstrate strengths in pattern recognition and be artistic or linguistically creative. Yeah. Then we have dysgraphia. Dysgraphia impacts writing abilities. Sorry, I just had my cat walking, including handwriting, spelling, and organizing thoughts on paper. While this can pose challenges in traditional educational workplace settings, individuals with dysgraphia often thrive in areas that require verbal communication or abstract thinking. Then we have Tourette syndrome. I don't know how old some of you are, but do you remember one of the earlier Big Brothers in the UK? We had Pete Bennett, and I remember he was like the first person I ever saw who had Tourette's, and he was like, you saw the involuntary tics he has. I call it tics. So I'll tell you a bit about it first. So it's characterized by repetitive involuntary movement or vocalizations, which is known as tics. These tics can be both motor and vocal, ranging from mild to more pronounced. Yeah? So Tourette's is something where they're not intentionally trying to say something. Maybe they might say, you might talk to somebody right now and they say, apples and oranges taste really good. You're thinking, where did that come from? Or it could be anything. When they start moving, you might simply have like a thing. They may have Tourette's. It's a tic. Potentially. Sensory processing disorder. It's called SPD. SPD affects how individuals perceive and respond to sensory stimuli. People with SPD may find certain sounds, textures, or light overwhelming, while others may seek additional sensory input. This condition often coexists with other forms of neurodivergence. So you might see it with like autism, like I mentioned, maybe the sensory overload. You may see it with something like maybe OCD. So it comes through with other things as well, potentially. Then we have IDD, so intellectual and developmental disabilities. IDD encompasses conditions that affect intellectual functioning and adaptive behaviours. This can include a wide range of abilities, and individuals with IDD often bring unique perspectives to problem solving and relationship building. So as you see, there are lots of different, and also people also do add, I've lost the word again. I'm losing a lot of words today. Some people also do add other things, like some people may say it part of neurodivergence, and so it's kind of out there. Some people don't agree, some people do agree. So something like sometimes personality disorders may be seen as somebody having neurodivergence. It's a different way of seeing the world, or a different way of processing and understanding the world. But again, some people would say nope, others would say yes. So and I say some, that's not all, some personality disorders. So as you can see, there are lots of different things that make you neurodivergent. So when someone says they're neurodivergent, it doesn't necessarily mean they're talking about being autistic or the ADHD, or it could have dyscalculia. It could be many different things. And again, some of these things would not have been made aware to the person or others until the pandemic, or until people like myself come online and talk about it with you. How can you be a good ally? Being a good ally means watching things like this and educating yourself, going on the NHS website to read up more, making sure the things you read actually come from some research and they are actually legible and viable and researched, so you understand what's happening. Not relying on them to educate you on what it is for everyone else, but trying to be empathetic, compassionate, and inclusive, and understanding what their needs are. What are the things that make them feel overstimulated, or what's the things that they may need a bit more support with, understanding. Do you need to send things to them beforehand to give them notice? Is being late their massive trigger? Are they always early but they're okay with it? Just being mindful of what different people's things are and giving compassion, and how you can help them is by you being compassionate too. So if you're noticing that you're taking long to get back for you on a deadline, bring in some compassion. Look, I need it by this time. I'll check in if you want this time and that time. And you are running late or running behind, or you can't do that, can you let me know by this point? If the meeting schedule runs over, can you let me know so I can plan? Just those bits of communication is really, really important. I also give a few tips for those who are neurodivergent into self-care. So having things that help with your sensory needs, earplugs or noise protectors, ensuring that you have eaten. Not eating, not drinking. For some, we don't realize they're dehydrated when they are. So having water with you, just little tidbits. I hope this has helped you to have a better understanding. The most important thing I think I will say though is that I saw it on one of the phone ads many years ago. I am paraphrasing, so it might not be said like this, but we can be together and be different. The ideal is to be together and not having to all fit under the same glove, the same umbrella, breathe, eat, sleep, talk the same. That's what makes it very beautiful to be diverse in thinking and understanding the world. So giving people that love and care and acceptance is really important. And I hope this has helped you to learn either more about yourself or those people that are around you. Take care.